up with either a tau or a alpha at some point, but I just wanted to make sure that it was going to work for me before. Hey, Geert.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
Morning.
We were just musing over the gateway drug nature of the Pico.
Ah, yes. Wow.
My Pico arrived.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that you were messing around with it.
Yeah.
Are you liking it?
Oh, I love it. It's great. Yeah. Having two kinds of fun, having fun torturing my wife and son playing it poorly. I'm real certain I have to send my pinky fingers and ring fingers to the gym to get them buffed up because the notes don't sound the same off all the fingers.
You know this?
Oh yeah, I saw one of those. Yeah, that looks like a must-have.
Yeah, something I used a long time ago for the guitar. It's
Yeah.
just, can be doing other stuff and just muscling your fingers.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
How old
The other
is
thing
your
I'm
son?
having fun with is the other side of things, the software side. There's all sorts of good stuff there.
Oh yeah, it's fast.
Yeah.
So how old is your son?
He's a junior in high school.
Oh, cool. Well, you should pass it on to your son also.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my fear is he'll be taking that to college with him when I replace it with my bigger brother.
Yeah. Well, when I put it in the hands of our when she was 9 years old, and then now 11 years old girl, she just instantly went away with it. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun to watch. Yes. So we're having this first Eigenharp Developers Conference this week. So I've been busy preparing for that.
I bet.
I haven't used the laptop in quite a while, so everything is on my iMac, and now I have to transfer everything, and then you realize how much stuff you accumulate without realizing it, and then you're like, oh god, I have to transfer this, and damn, the licenses for those plugins, where are they again?
Right.
So I think I'm about done now.
Yeah. Yeah, it still's not quite it might be okay at the point you can use a solid state drive, like through, I forget, what's the new, Thunderbolt.
Yeah, but what I do is...
Thunderbolt might give you a reasonable level of performance, and then you could just use an external drive for almost everything.
But that's what I do. I take a carbon copy clone of my internal hard drive on the iMac and just put it on a RAID external drive of a FireWire 800. It's acceptable.
Okay.
The problem is that a whole bunch of software actually calculates that its license is based off of the CPU that it's running off.
Yeah, that's just sick and wrong.
Yeah, so that's horrible. You have to kind of go over every plugin that you have. Okay, this one, yes, it works. No, it doesn't work. Okay, where is that license again? And on some of them, you can't. You just can't license them because they've got a maximum of 2 registrations or something like that, and they have to let one of them go, and I can't do that. So
yeah. Yeah, that's a sad, complicated problem. The whole metering thing. Yeah, that's still.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody's figured that out yet.
Well,
on any platform.
I used to be very anti iLock keys. You know, there's this little dongles. A lot of software use these thingies, right? And they store a lot of licenses on there. And it's a drag because, you know, if you lose this, you have no backup. You lose your software, right? You can pay them for a backup service if you want to, but if you don't, you lose your software. But on the other hand, what I find now is because I used to work on a laptop, so I always had everything installed, and then this is a drag. But since I now work on a desktop, since I don't travel as much anymore, and twice in the last year I had to use my laptop, everything that uses this just works straight out of the box because I just plug this into the laptop and it works. You know, all the licenses have transferred. So there is always a pro and a con to everything, right? Hey, Antonio.
The developers conference to look at future directions.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
is the developers conference to look at future directions?
No, the developers conference is mostly for people are looking into the open source section of EigenD, so the software behind the Eigenharp, and to get them up to speed with programming for the Eigenharp, so that they can write their own plugins and instruments and effects and strange, crazy things that might do whatever you want with any data that transfers. So it's basically to help you. There's about 12 people, I think, coming, which I think is quite amazing. So help everyone getting started, and so we've got a couple of presentations, and then each time in the afternoon we have a series of programming sessions where basically the EigenLabs team is available to help people getting started and answer questions, and then in the evening we jam. Make music. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, what a blast!
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to do me a lot of good also, getting out there.
Are you a developer, technical guy, John, or just a regular musician guy?
Are you asking me?
No, John. Yeah.
Just a music person.
Okay. So this developer conference would definitely, it would be analogous to having a club of car mechanics that like to putter inside their car, but a typical driver would never have to do that. So it would just be for people that want to get under the hood. So you theoretically would never have to do that to enjoy a lifetime of playing on the various Eigenharps.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I do have a passport. Hey, Mike.
Good morning.
Hi, Mike. Yeah.
How are things?
Great. We're just talking a little bit about developer conference, and John was wondering what it was all about. Jeff, right? It's Jeff now. It's not John. Jeff, right? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
That's okay. I answered you.
So yes. What have you been up to, Mike?
Well, mostly moving. It's relaxing. Not much Eigenharping in the last week. And keeping warm.
Right, yes. It's that period, right? The period of the year.
Yeah.
Hibernation.
What's the temperature today?
Sorry?
What's the temperature today?
Oh, it's only minus 12 now.
Ah!
Only. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Antonio.
Hi, Antonio.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, are you getting packed, Antonio?
Yeah, almost. I'm maybe thinking of making a list of things maybe would be interesting to bring over. Not too distractive, but I don't know.
I was thinking also of writing down what I was gonna bring. I'm gonna bring one of my audio interfaces with me. People can use that, but it only works on Mac. But if you want to save some space, you can use that. And some pedals I will probably bring along also, so that you don't have to bring those along. So I'll send out a list with stuff that I'll pack. And then honestly, John has got a farm full of gear. You'll see once you get there. It's quite amazing. He's been doing electronic music for a very, very long time, and everything that is kind of related to computers or electronic music, you will probably find something, one of each thing that exists somewhere in his barn. So yes.
I have a question for Mike. Say, Mike, last week you talked about deconstructing audio plugins to get to the basic sound, and I was wondering if you could talk more about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
last week you were talking, or you mentioned about deconstructing audio plug-in instruments to get to the basic sound so that it could be used with the Eigenharp.
Well, I think I was referring to the string instrument that Ferdinand actually did that too. But it's just a matter of turning off the articulations that are in whatever the plugin has set up and connecting the articulations to controllers. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Hang on, let me maybe show you if you've never seen how this works. Let me see, because I've moved stuff around. It's all not in the right place. So I'm gonna share this part on the screen. So this is the Pan Drums plugin by Sonicature. And when it starts up by default, it's got this turned on. So you just press a key and it starts jamming. I'm not playing, I'm just holding two keys down. And why is that? That's because there is this jammer button that is pressed. Which is cool on the keyboard because you just press, 3 keys on the keyboard down and it will kind of sound like a natural articulation. But you're limited to what the automated strip does for you. Now if you turn this off, so this is what I actually played before, but then you can. So this little button basically automates a lot of things that you don't need on the Eigenharp, and there are a huge amount of things like that in each virtual instrument. You might have a filter cutoff, for example, here. You might want to tie that to the inclination of a note. See if I can quickly do that. Automation. Filter cutoff. Okay, and then tying that to your. Let's see. You see, so this moves now as I move my key. And so there's stuff like that, kind of setting it up. So that it basically behaves as you would like to play with the Eigenharp, since you've got so much control on each key. That's basically what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think too it's worth pointing out, as it took me a while before I realized that pitch and yaw both sort of start at 0 at rest. So you can invert them and actually control 2 different controls as long as they're not interrelated. So, for example, in that Mrs. Sachs one I was talking about, I have yaw assigned to both tonguing and undertones, subharmonics. So if I go one way, I do tonguing. If I go the other way, I do subharmonics. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a way of getting, when I started out, I was just using, it's yaw, so I'll use that to control a thing. But you can actually use it to control at least 2.
Yes. So yeah, finding out the things that you find comfortable is usually, takes a little bit of time.
And it's unique to each plugin.
Yes, and it's also unique to your playing style. People might, in the beginning, as you start playing the Eigenharp, you're probably not hitting the keys in the middle, but kind of hitting it more to the sides, which means that you get a lot of unwanted control behaviors happening. So you might want to set that to more, a less sensitive value. While as you become more proficient and you start hitting the keys in the middle and are able to keep that under control more easily, then you can gradually start making it more sensitive so that you have more control in real time when you play it. As you gain that control during your rehearsals. That's my bird. I'll just turn the microphone down for now. He's done.
So, Geert, you got your Pico.
Yes. Yeah, I'm having fun with it.
Nice.
Most of the time I keep my hands on so I don't torture the family when I'm playing. Pretty frightening.
The nice thing is that you can just plug in headphones, right? And
right.
People can be just walking past you in the room, and you're just in your own world.
or on a train.
Or on a train.
You're famous for that one.
I know.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing that in the trip to New Year, but let's see.
Hey, Antonio, you're
yeah.
Something maybe that I'm not sure that Jess told you, but when you take the train from London to Newton Abbot, try to reserve a place beforehand. Go on the website of Southwestern Railways and reserve a seat.
I think I have the tickets.
No, it's something else. Not just the tickets.
Okay.
Reserve a seat. If you don't reserve a seat, you might end up in the hallway. Because that train sometimes is really, really packed full.
Packed. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
It's happened to me twice, and it's a 2.5 hour drive in the train while having to stand up. It's not that cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I understand the conductor is Basil Fawlty.
Or Manuel.
Better still.
Yeah. Because it's not my fault. Look, no hands. So yeah. So Dirk, what have you been looking? So you started looking into EigenD itself, right? Already?
Yes. Well, I'm actually taking a step back and going kind of slower and trying to look into more performance stuff and just basic setup.
Right.
I do have questions.
Because I was like, Dirk got his Pico almost the same day. Hey, how do you, this particular piece of code inside EigenD, what is that for? It's like, okay. Oh, man.
Didn't take me long, did it? That was really helpful, that MIDI from scratch example. I did have a couple of questions that popped up out of that. One of the things I noticed that in the phrases, the talker phrases, I noticed that some kind of had initial segments that were quoted and some weren't quoted. What's the tactical requirement for quoting?
It's basically the ones that are quoted are deferred, which means that they're evaluated by the interpreter as a phrase by themselves, while when they're not quoted, you have this concept of conversations in Belcanto, which means that every agent that you want to listen to certain verbs, you have to have it join the conversation, and you do that with either you talk to one agent by saying hey, either you say listen after an agent, and when you create a talker with a certain phrase, the agents that understand it will know that the phrase exists, and as you define the talker, it will kind of set it up as a as a predefined thing that already exists. It's not evaluated afterwards. It's evaluated right here and there. So basically, that's the difference. So when it's quoted, it's deferred. When it's not quoted, it's resolved when you type it in, and everything that's at that time in the conversation will still be in the conversation afterwards.
I guess my misinterpretation was, by definition, talkers don't get evaluated until they're articulated.
No, that's not true. Yeah. Basically, for performance reasons, talkers are always pre-evaluated. because you might be searching through a lot of agents.
I picked the wrong word. Executed.
Executed, yes. So they're only executed when the trigger appears.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm still a little. So I'll see if I can find some more references on that, because I'm still a little bit sketchy about semantically when I would use the quoting to defer it versus not deferring it. I'll see if I can help with some.
You might use that for something that comes and goes, or you might want to use that for something that's not in the conversation when you create a talker. If you want to, or to talk to an agent that's not in the active conversation, that's what it's usually used for.
So does the Belcanto kind of get I don't want to say pre-compiled at the time you load it then? So I guess I would assume that everything in a talker phrase would be kind of executed at real time when you articulated the button.
Yes.
So maybe that's the difference between deferred and not deferred. So as an example, if I had some other agent that was dependent on the phrase of the particular talker, that might not be in play at the point I submit the code, but it might be at runtime.
Yes. Yes. That could be one example.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yes.
So in 2.0 of EigenD, Belcanto still has the same stature that it did in 1.0, right?
Yes. But it's been streamlined a bit.
Okay.
There are things that are quite complex in EigenD 1 that have been streamlined to become easier into. A little bit less magic, more straightforwardness, tied to the visibility of Workbench.
Right. Okay. The other thing I found really helpful was the way the tools fit together. So if you're not using I did subscribe to I did fire up the Pro subscription as well, so I have Workbench, but I'm trying to understand all the tools. So it was interesting to see how, I think it was in one of the forum threads about learning Belcanto, you talked about using Stage to kind of introspectively look at the setups. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
I did get stumped a little bit in the MIDI from scratch. It basically, near the beginning, it set up the keys, and it was nice for my Pico to see. I was kind of scratching my head on the key numbers for the buttons, and so that really spelled that out for me. That was like 19, 20, etc. Later on, in some phrases for a talker, it was referencing 19 and 20, kind of the octave up and down in the factory setup, as key 1 and 2. So I guess the next thing I did was I go, oh, well, that must have been recast because of, say, a key group or something, but I couldn't find anything like that.
Yes. So basically, for the octave talkers, a separate key group is created that comes after the main key group and has then those keys as 1 and 2. Yes.
Okay, so from a learning perspective, then, if I see kind of a recasting of key numbers, then that would be relative to the latter key group assignment. And all I have to do is find.
You have to be aware, though, that in EigenD 1, this is one of the major things we changed in 2. In EigenD 1, there is only one recasting behavior, which is when you change the order of the keys, because you can select the keys and redefine them, it will be and for the physical position and for the musical position. So typically a talker key, you want it at the bottom, and you will always want to stay at the bottom. But the problem with EigenD 1 is if you say, okay, I'm going to reconfigure how my notes, what the order of my notes are, then actually the talker keys also change, because they're kind of, the physical and the musical position is blended together. While in EigenD 2, we separated that out so that you can really say, okay, this is tied to a physical position on the instrument. It is a column of a row. While when I redefine, for example, the order of the keys in a key group, then you're not talking about the physical order, but you're talking about the musical order. And then you actually define courses and keys. And an example, so the scaler, which is the agent that generates the notes based on the key that you press, we call that the scaler. The scaler will use the musical note information to know, okay, you're at course number 3 and the second key on course number 3, thus that corresponds to an F sharp, for example, right, based on the active scale. While talker that gets the same note information might know, okay, well, hang on, this might be course 3 and key 2, but I'm not interested in that. I know, because it is separated out, that this is actually the first row totally at the bottom. And hey, I'm a talker that listens to the first row totally at the bottom. So now I'm going to trigger something. So those have been cleanly separated now in EigenD 2.
Okay. Now, in EigenD 1, all the tools kind of work together as just different perspectives on the active setup. Is that's the same way? I'm assuming that's the same way in 2?
Yes, there's just one thing missing, which is there's a feedback loop missing at the time back to Workbench. So if you've got an editor window open of an agent, so there's this currently not very greatly designed editor window, which we're going to redesign very shortly. That one needs to be redone so that it actually also updates if you, for example, use stage to change a value or use the keyboard to change a value. So yeah, the idea is that everything interconnects and that you can instantly see it change in whatever tool that is available.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. As, if you, for example, start typing in some Belcanto and you've got, for example, the MIDI routing matrix open and you say, okay, make a mapping from this to that in Belcanto, then you actually see it appear in the routing matrix also. That little square will become filled in. So
right.
It is nice to have this round trip behavior because you know that what you're watching at is always the current state. There's no confusion.
Is there a repository for both setups and Belcanto scripts at a community level, not at a EigenLab?
Not yet, but we're talking about setting that up, of course.
What would be your? This is not really an official; it's an unofficial question. What would be your preference? Would you rather see that stuff grassroots out of the community, or would you rather see that centralized from EigenLabs?
I think both are okay.
Okay. So you wouldn't be opposed. What do the rest of you guys think? Would you guys be interested in somebody setting up a free website where you could go in and post setups, Belcanto scripts, kind of a knowledge base to supplement what's not already on the EigenLab site and the wiki, for example?
Well, the thing is, one thing that I'm personally always scared of, that is duplicating community effort for things that are not worth it. I've run quite a bunch of community sites for various technologies and groups and whatnot, and it's very easy to set something up, right? Once you're a little bit technical minded, but getting people to contribute and post things is almost impossible. Everyone says that they will do so, but nobody does.
Yeah.
So. I'd say I'm more than willing to set stuff up on EigenZone. There is already a lot of things on there, but I keep telling to everyone, EigenZone is supposed to be a community site. Everyone can post on the blog, everyone can contribute to the wiki. If something is missing in terms of a plugin, then I'll just add it. Now, it's totally cool. Anyone can set up its own site, and I think that's a great idea. A bunch of community members have done that, but we have to be careful to not create 5 wikis, right? Or
I guess
or 3 forums.
Maybe I just need a pointer as a new guy. Where can I get 20 or 30 of the above setups, Belcanto scripts, things like that?
Well, they're not there because people don't contribute them. Yes.
I'm sorry. I was talking. Go ahead.
No, it's me. The thing is that they're not there because people, typically people, they start working on something, and then contributing back is that little bit of extra effort, everyone plans to do it, and everyone, you know, says, oh, this looks like a cool setup, and I'll contribute it back. And what I've seen happening most of the time is then people start, you know, beautifying it, which is okay. If I contribute it back, then I want to explain it properly, and then I want to, you know, make sure that it really starts correctly and stuff like that. And then it gets put on the back burner, and eventually they never contribute any setups or scripts back. So we're at this stage in Eigenharp land where actually the most interesting information is in the forums, because people discuss things, give little snippets of information, and then the final step of contributing back something functional is extremely rarely done. So yeah, I don't know how to solve this, but maybe setting up a dedicated resource would be a good idea for send your setup here and then have a browsable list that goes into a tree structure or that is tagged, or I don't know, and clouds of related attributes. And anything is possible.
It's an interesting conundrum. I appreciate your perspective there, but at the same time, I think with the richness, I shouldn't say complexity, the richness of an Eigenharp, you run the risk of people hitting the wall pretty quick. So like right now, I have a lot of questions about, I can practice on my own. Those references are available to me, but the whole software side, you know, I'm nearing the proverbial brick wall without seeing either very deep technical documentation, which I would rather have you guys building code, not writing documentation, or exemplars through, again, setups and Belcanto scripts that I can introspectively look at. So I think that's the challenge, is to provide one of those two kinds of references for, you know, everybody at every level, whether they're beginners, intermediate, or advanced, so that they can continue to grow.
There actually are quite a few interesting scripts sprinkled around the wiki. The problem I've had with setups is that they're not necessarily generic. So as soon as you do a setup that's a tweaking of something with an audio unit or a VST in it, the other person, to make it useful, has to have that audio unit and VST. And worse, they have to have the same version, and quite often they have to have the samples in the same place on their hard drives. So, you know, a lot of the setups, the factory setups are great because they're basically unpopulated, but they're fairly comprehensive. Like I guess Geert's example with the hang drum is a good one, where it really is a good extension to a full setup. And as long as you happen to have the thing, it works great, and it was delivered as a script, as opposed to a setup.
My point, to get back to what I said earlier, so that hang drum script personally has been floating around in my to-do directory for 7 months before I actually got to it, to be able to say, okay, it's one thing to send in a script, but it's another thing to make sure that it runs in a vanilla setup, to make sure that it that it's documented, to make sure it didn't make any typos, to make sure all these things. There's that little extra effort that most of the time it doesn't get done unless you really sit down and do it. And I think that's the reason why people have not been contributing back that much. But I think this is going to change with Workbench. Maybe not in 2.0, and probably in 2.1 when rigs will become easy to export and import back in again, so that people don't have to share a whole setup, but they can only share a part that might be interesting, which is, hey, look, I have this key group layout that's very, very suitable for playing horizontally while touching with your elbows at the same time. I don't know, it might be anything. Sending out just a rig that does that becomes very interesting, because people can integrate it with their custom setup and don't necessarily have to understand how to run the script, how to access the Eigen browser or the Eigen commander, what to do when it fails and stuff like that. So I think that this will become reality in a couple of months. as that starts to stabilize and people get this facility.
Another thing that would be easy to contribute and useful are sound engines. So, making up a rig that basically replicates an FM synth together with programming is something you don't have to be. You have to have a certain specialized knowledge to do it. You don't need the specialized knowledge to use it, and you don't really need any programming knowledge. You just need Workbench. You just have to pull all the wires together.
Yes. Yeah. And
so I'm really looking forward to doing that.
And increasingly, as people start adding agents, and after the developer conference this week, I'm pretty sure that quite a few attendees will start writing smaller agents and maybe much bigger ones also that do tasks that are currently missing. To allow to build those rigs that are sound engines or synths or different sequencers or arpeggiators or I don't know what can be vocoders.
My preference would be to build a lot of atomic small agents. So, like there was an example of somebody wanting an FM component.
Agent, yeah.
Yeah, but I actually think you can just take two oscillators and hook them together, and you've got an FM.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you could make all the algorithms on any FM synth that had ever been generated in about 10 minutes out of what really is already there.
Yes.
Same would be true of ring mods, multi-resonant filters. The kind of things, the low-level things that would be nice are things like envelope followers, more generic.
Data mangling stuff. There's some things are missing in terms of rewriting data and aggregating data and handling some of the polyphonic stuff needs to be.
But it's really exciting what you can build out of just little things. I mean, if you think about it, most synths are built out of little components, especially the more traditional ones.
Yes. So yes, to get back to your question, Dirk, I actually think that is actually something that is missing, and it will come. I think people will start contributing things like snippets of setups and basically because we will be providing an infrastructure that will be fail-safe and dumb-proof and things like that.
Sure. Dumb-proof? You haven't met me.
Well, that's one of the nice things of a rig.
Yeah.
A rig is self-contained and it's got its own inputs and outputs, and it can't, step on the toes of any other agents or get in the way of anything else that you've set up. Which is relatively dumb-proof. Right? If you can find the file on your hard drive and load it into Workbench, then you have to really try hard to get it to do something bad. Not that you will not be able to, you will be able to, but you have to try hard. While working with scripts and the Eigen commander, you have to try hard not to make it do something bad, right? It's the other way around. So I will try. Yeah, you're good at crashing things, Geert. I know. Yeah. That's what I think every developer musician is actually very good at that. Oh, let's try this edge case. Has he thought of that? Ha, he hasn't, yes. Yes.
No, that's a special super talent I have. I crash everything. Google Plus, for instance, and 3 computers.
I did manage to waste an inordinate amount of time on a stupid I didn't think of it thing this week, which is there are an amazing number of plugins that won't work at higher sample rates. They just don't produce sound. So I had been trying some higher sample rates on a couple of things, and then all of a sudden, of course, well, that AU isn't making any sound. Why is that? An hour later, it's sort of like, oh, I see why.
It's frustrating, yeah, it's frustrating. I've had that happen also. Yeah, because once you've got them installed, you might have installed them 6 months ago, and at that time you did read through it that it was only 44.1.
Exactly.
6 months down the road, you don't remember.
No, that's exactly what happened to me, and it was hours on something absolutely obvious and stupid.
Yeah.
I've been delving the depths of high-resolution audio suppliers, and some of the content is unbelievably good.
Once you start pushing towards 96K, a lot of things becomes so, I mean, it touches you in your belly. It goes right straight into your, your bones. It's like, oh, God.
As we speak, I'm downloading some Grieg in 192.24.
Oh, cool. Wow. Yes.
Of course, one album is 2 gig, but it sounds spectacular.
Yes, yes.
And Geert, the stuff that you release, there's 3 or 4 sites that sell releases of high-res audio. You might want to consider seeing if they'll take yours. And one of the which I'm sure they would, they don't have a lot of content. And if you have that content, there's a lot of people who they want the content, right?
I know, yeah.
So they're less finicky about whether that's right in their interest or not.
Right, but stuff that I do is not mixed well enough for that kind of thing.
Why? Just take a few hours and go through it and do it again. Ha.
Right. Well, before the next project, maybe. Well, the thing though is once you start, pushing into 96K or 192K, basically every piece of DSP gear that you have just falls flat on its face. It's 48K is okay. You can do that with a good computer, but once you start going to 96K and you have 10 tracks, it's not enough. One good computer is not enough. So you get into the realm of the difference between amateur and professional again. So.
Oh yeah, just simply playing a surround track at that rate is daunting for my Mac Pro.
Yeah.
Never mind mixing it.
But it's fun because how quickly things change. Because I've been putting stuff back on my laptop to travel in 2 days, go to London. Everything has been going on my iMac for more than half a year now. And I know there's so many things that just don't work properly because I've been pushing the limits of the iMac, which is vastly exceeds the limitations of the MacBook Pro. So I was like, I'm checking this, I'm removing that, and okay, no polyphony there, and it's because there are things now. I've been playing around with Uhe's Diva plugin quite a lot, but I played at 96K. It makes a whole difference. A lot of difference, but it's just impossible to play even one note at 96K on my MacBook Pro. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, had that problem too.
So, and then you start kind of puts things back into perspective. So I was thinking, okay, well, if I really want to get the nice performance out of that and get a few tracks going, build up a sequence, what kind of computer would I need? And it's okay, I'll probably need two good computers that play together. And they're like, okay, what prices are you talking about? And like, you have to have 8 gigs of RAM. And you're like, okay, well, why I shouldn't maybe buy just an analog synth? Because you're at the same price level basically. And you still risk getting a buffer overruns and stuff like that, since it's a computer, and you're really pushing the limits. So it's interesting to think about that again. If you start pushing these boundaries and go to 96K and things that emulate analog synthesis in this case very faithfully, how expensive it is.
Yeah. it's quite different than playing samples at that rate.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, running a model is a whole other thing.
It's interesting because when I was playing with Piano Tech after Antonio told me to have a look at it, I really liked it a lot, and I said to the rest at EigenLab, why haven't we approached Piano Tech before to try to ship that with EigenD instead of the samples, because it seems to to be a better fit for the Eigenharp model. And the answer was very simple. It said when we first wanted to ship, you could basically only play 2 notes on Piano Tech in real time, because none of the computers could actually do that properly.
Run it.
So things go fast, right?
Yeah, but this also shows that it's pretty good that everything is on the laptop, because now you can buy the laptop, so people have the possibilities. So it's good that it's not built in.
Exactly, yeah.
And by the way, new laptops come out, we probably will be able to do all the Diva stuff in maybe half a year.
Yes, maybe.
Has anybody done any distributed work? Either.
Yeah, it's one of the areas but I didn't get so lucky. But that VSL, I'm relying on that to make it Ethernet-wise, so you don't have to use other interfaces to send VST or audio units to for example, a Mac Mini. I'm trying to travel with it also and to see, but I think it's a nice approach. So you divide things up in 1 or 2 machines.
Well, I guess there's NetAU, right? Does that work?
I don't know.
Has anybody tried it?
Yeah, I don't think I have the skills to pull it up, but it should have. I should have used to put it to work. But on the site, they said it works.
Yeah, I never got it to work either. So.
But what are you talking about? The things that ships with OS 10?
It comes with Mac. It's just there.
I've worked with that. Yeah, it's okay. There is a bit of latency though, and it is compressed. But I did use it for live performance. But I wouldn't do it for things that have to be, let one instrument and you get different notes that have to be in sync with other notes and split up into 2 computers. But basically, I wouldn't. This is on audio rates, right? They just send audio around. I wouldn't do that. I would just put a mixing desk at the end and have the audio that comes out of the 2 computers mixed together at a mixing desk. It seems a little bit strange to send it back over Ethernet and kind of have this additional CPU load on each computer, because it has to kind of compress it, send it over, decompress it, and melt it into the other audio stream. So, but what would be cool though is, just while we're talking about this, just brainstorming, since EigenD is network aware, we could actually, right?
I was about to assign you that as a project.
Or try to. Still.
Yeah.
But it is something we discussed in the previous weeks that has been from the start. The building block of EigenD is to make it a networked application where each agent can be networked. But actually, this also means it could be interesting to have an agent that is split up over the network. I'm not sure what the latency will be, though. That's always a problem, right? It's making sure that it's still playable after it's been sent out and then processed. How much latency will this add? If it's just MIDI, it's probably quite okay. But you don't want MIDI. You want EigenD info, which is audio basically. So then you get back in the audio thing, in the audio realm, which is like net AU and receive. And you don't want to compress it. You have to have this sent out directly. But I think it will become something very important because, you know, we're at the end of Moore's law and CPUs will not get much faster.
Yeah.
Can we quote you on that one?
You can quote me on anything you want.
Okay.
Well, it is, you know, the clock speed of my iMac that has 3 times the performance of my MacBook Pro is less than the clock speed of my MacBook Pro. My MacBook Pro is 3.04 gigahertz, and this one is my iMac is 2.93 gigahertz. So, CPU, you know, the free lunch is over, as they say. Just.
Although a lot of what we're talking about is very amenable to parallel processing.
Well, real-time parallel processing is the big problem.
Well, the scheduling of it is a problem,
yes.
obviously.
Distributed calculations in parallel processing, with an eventual outcome that will come sometimes in the future. You know, on the best effort basis, that's an amazing advancement in cloud computing and whatnot. But having this, being done right in time, in real time, exactly when you want it to be delivered, be there and make sure that it's always there, it's something very, very, very difficult. Oh, is all this stuff single-threaded or multi-threaded? Currently, you're talking about EigenD itself, or just talking about general music and music software?
Address both.
The answer is yes.
Well, typically it is always multi-threaded, but not exactly where you want it to be. Usually you've got multiple threads. You've got low priority threads for GUI updates and things that that are not critical. And then most of the time you only have one real-time thread that does the processing. Multi-threaded real-time audio code is extremely difficult to get right. Because you might have, let's say they've got, how are you going to split this up? We've got an idea about how to do this in EigenD, but let's say you're in a digital audio workstation. How are you going to split this up? Which one will be put on which thread, and when do you decide to stop processing on that thread and redistribute the load and things like that? It is almost an impossible problem to solve. So
just for fun, I just had a look at Activity Monitor, and I'm running EigenD. And if you don't count Apple File Server, it has more threads than anything else running at 53. And I don't have much loaded in the setup I've got.
But still, the thing though is we have still in EigenD at the moment there is one main real-time thread.
Yeah.
Which is the authoritative, or you say this? Authoritative? Anyway, real-time thread that does the audio processing. The only leeway that it has is that sample buffer size that you have. That's what it can do in that sample buffer size in that particular clock speed is what your computer will be able to do, and that's it. But this is also something that is scheduled, so we've got a good idea about how to solve this. Since we've got this nice model of agents that is an agent graph that are all clocked together because all agents have to give their clock relationship to the upstream agent, we actually know how things are related. So we can start splitting things up in multiple real-time threads, and eventually, and probably will in several years down the road, we'll probably have to start doing it to multiple computers. But things like Thunderbolt are very interesting for these things because the bandwidth is so dramatically increased that just sending audio back and forth and setting signals from the Eigenharp back and forth between computers is probably just going to be okay. So, and as computers start having these ports that are general purpose, high speed, high bandwidth data ports, then I think this will obviously become the way to do things. But we're not there yet.
So what's Thunderbolt?
What's Thunderbolt? That's that new technology that Intel has given to Apple for 1 year before the rest can use it.
Yeah.
It's basically a high-speed data transfer protocol that is able to it's as if you open up your computer and you take a PCI slot and you pull it outside and you have a cable that allows you to connect that to another one. So it's as if well, it's more complex than that, but it gives you sort of the same kind of data rates, if I understand it correctly. Maybe I'm saying something stupid, but I don't think so.
No, that's exactly my understanding. And in fact, I think you can even presently buy PCIe expansion chassis. So in theory, you can put a PCIe card in your laptop.
No, because one of the things about Thunderbolt is that you can use it to connect your monitor, so you can send its screen information that refreshes at the rate that is necessary for playing games or whatnot. At the same time, you can also send it high speed, just disk access over the same wire while having audio going through it, all over one wire. And you can chain them, so you could have, what is it, 3 screens I think is a limitation, 3 screens connected with then a hard drive at the other end, which actually runs faster than eSATA currently. But it all just changed through with one wire.
Yeah, there's Thunderbolt attached flash drives that run at 700 megabytes a second. That's nuts.
And so I think that will open up a whole bunch of new possibilities in terms of interconnectedness and computational distribution. How do you say that? Well, we're far away from music now.
No, we aren't.
Sadly, we aren't, right?
Well, we'll just call it musical technology.
Yeah. So I'm gonna sign off. It's time.
It's that time.
It's that time.
Thanks again, guys.
Wow, and it's been
good to see you guys.
That hour went through extremely fast.
Yeah.
Very much.
So, Drahika and Antonio, see you in a couple of days in the flesh.
Okay.
Yeah, see you.
See you.
And I'll probably not, next Monday I'll not be back. I'm still on the train, so
Yeah.
I
Me
will
too.
not be able to host a hangout. But if someone else wants to, you're totally free to do so.
I'll call it up. I'll probably end up talking
Okay.
to me. But what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.